We're back on the Morgan Streetman Show. Still so much to get into, but we have to talk This Is Your President. It wouldn't be the Morgan Streetman Show without a good This Is Your President segment.
Well, we are running out of time, which is a big disappointment to me, as always. But let's talk about your president. Don't you love your president so much? How he whispers at you loudly like your loopy grandfather who thinks you don't know something basic, but really the fact is he's just too senile to realize that he missed the point. Like, what does he think he's president of? Let's hear him.
United States.
Okay. All right, Joe. Well, okay. I suppose we could imagine that as well. Meanwhile, while he's whispering to us, sort of the laugh fest continues, and this will lead a little bit into our next story, but this is the laugh fest that he and Kamala must have sitting around the Oval Office, just laughing at each other.
Infrastructure Week. I'm so happy to say that. Infrastructure Week.
Okay, so this infrastructure bill, this $1.2 trillion, trillion with the T bill, could they waste our money any faster? Could they they're destroying the dollar, and they're doing it on purpose, and it's to force us into some other currency. So they've just got to accelerate away from any kind of rational basis for the U.S. dollar, which is a fictionalized idea anyway, because it's not based on a gold standard or something tangible that you could measure and restrict and contain. They just print as much as they can. So they printed $1.2 trillion and just sort of blew it into the wind. And this whole purpose is to get us flipped over now. Ultimately, you'll see this happen probably 2 to 3 years from now. They get us flipped over to some type of a digital currency, which will be an analog to like a Bitcoin, but they'll call it FedCoin because it won't let that be a private. That'll have to be government controlled and unlimited, unlike Bitcoin. So that'll be a unlimited government control. It'll be your credits, like on the Starship Enterprise. You'll have credits that you can use to buy things, and it won't be as much fun as it would be to be on the Starship Enterprise. But you know what's so interesting about this infrastructure bill to me, the vote on it, 228 to 206, they had 6 Democrats opposing it, including a good amount of the squad who normally we don't agree with, but in this case I think they were right to oppose it. They had 13 Republicans vote for this bill. Without those 13 Republican votes, this bill would not have passed. You need to figure out who these Republicans are. And if you happen to live in a state where these folks are running for office, you need to make sure these people get primaried. It includes people like, would you believe it, Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio. These are Trump haters through and through that do anything to try to sabotage President Trump's agenda back when he was president. And now, of course, they're voting with the Democrats on this infrastructure bill and giving it enough votes to pass. And it's like I've gotten to where I like to say now with Republicans like these, who needs Democrats, right? I mean, come on, these people couldn't – they're shooting us in the foot here. But here's what you get for the $1.2 trillion. Of that, about $110 billion supposedly is going towards improving the roads and bridges. So on a $1.2 trillion bill, about 10% is actually going to what most of us consider to be infrastructure. But then they're going to get this, something like $66 billion to Amtrak, right? Just what we need. That's how America moves, is Amtrak, right? Yeah, right. So that basically is that Acela corridor up there from D.C. up to Philadelphia. That's where Amtrak operates. Everywhere else, good luck. You can't ride an Amtrak. It takes you like 26 days to get from Florida to California on an Amtrak. You got to go up to Chicago and et cetera, et cetera. Nobody's using Amtrak. It's not built out for this kind of transportation. But let's throw another $66 billion at it. It's unbelievable. $65 billion for what they call broadband infrastructure. I mean, almost everybody already has broadband. What do we need to send another $65 billion? These numbers are almost comedic. I mean, it's like comical. It's like made-up numbers, $65 billion. By the way, what do you think's in that part of the bill? Oh, 1 in 4 households will receive a $30 per month subsidy to be able to access the Internet. So now we're talking about corporate welfare. They put $65 billion into upgrading the nation's electricity grid, and don't count on this stopping things like what we saw in Texas not so many months ago. Don't count on this stopping this brownouts and power outages in California and other places. Those are still going to happen. This $65 billion, we're just going to light that on fire, and that'll just be gone. That money's down the memory hole. They're putting up $7.5 billion for a network of electric vehicle chargers. $5 billion. A billion. This is how many buses does this buy? $5 billion for zero-emission buses. $2.5 billion for ferries, because we're all using ferries so often in our daily lives. We better throw another $2.5 billion at that. $55 billion to replace all the nation's lead water pipes. Like, that is the role of the federal government, to go around replacing the water pipes in different municipalities. There's all kinds of other pork in this bill. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. Hundreds of millions of dollars going to these programs with good-sounding names like the Healthy Streets Program, the Transportation Resilience and Adaptation Centers of Excellence. This money's just gone. You might as well light it on fire, go into some bureaucracy that's going to produce nothing but a bunch of studies that actually are not don't match up with reality, just like they always do. $400 million going to universities for COVID relief, because we've got to help those universities out with their huge endowments. They need to take money out of it, because believe me, folks, if you're listening to this show, you got plenty of money, right? Every month you got millions in excess every month. So we're going to reach into your pocket. We're going to take that money out, and we're going to give it to these big universities that fund these leftist social experiments that we're calling college now. And we're going to fund them with your money. This is your money, and they're stealing it from you. They're taking it from. They call it taxation, but taxation is theft. They're stealing it from you, and they're essentially lighting it on fire. Now let's come to the biggest issue, and boy, we're not going to get into a lot of stuff, but this is probably the biggest issue, I think, of all, and that is that hidden in this infrastructure bill, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security is going to grant parole to illegals who've been in the country since 2011. So they've hidden amnesty in the infrastructure bill, and they snuck it by you with the votes of a group of Republicans who shouldn't even be called Republicans. And you don't get a vote on this. See, your Congress doesn't do what you want, American people, because the American people, by and large, are against this concept of amnesty for illegals. They're against it, but you know what? Now it's happening. They're calling it infrastructure, and you're going to like it. Reminds me of the story we told you last week about they're going to give the $450,000 to each member of a family separated at the border. These families came here illegally, and then we had some clips. We're out of time to run them. But Biden said last week that was a garbage report. It was never going to happen. And then when the White House, when his policy advisors, who are obviously actually running things, come back and inform him, actually, sir, we are negotiating to pay that $450,000 to each of these. Then he tries to change his story, and he just acts like he didn't lie about it the week before. I mean, isn't the story there really the fact that your President Joe Biden has no idea what his own administration is doing? Obviously, nobody feels the need to run anything by him or check it out with him. What does your president actually think? No, because this administration is running without him. This is Barack Obama and all of his helpers, and they're running this administration. Joe Biden is just a figurehead. I'm Morgan Streetman, and that's the way I see it. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least